like, wow, that's incredible, you won, like you got first place. And I was like, yeah, I did it, I won the county. And he's like, wow, that's great. So is there like a bigger tournament than this? Is there like another one?
Sure.
And I was like, yeah, there is. There's districts. And he was like, great. So are you like getting ready for that one now? And I'm like, yeah, I guess, but like there's not. So then I competed in districts, and then I won that one. And he was like, oh my god, what happens now? I was like, I go to nationals. He's like, okay, so you think you're gonna I was like, this is stupid. Like, so I never felt good enough.
So you can relate to this.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. That doesn't really sound like that's a bad thing. I mean, he's still congratulating you. He's still saying that you're doing a good job.
But what the writer's saying is, it's a double-edged sword.
Sure.
And I think that this is actually true in a lot of people's lives. So in my private practice, I work with a lot of like really successful people, affluent people who've done really well. And the common thread between all those folks that have that tenacity and that drive is nothing was handed to them. And they had to climb their way up. They have a chip on their shoulder because they didn't have all cheerleaders telling them they're good enough as they are. They had people telling them, work harder, you're almost there.
Right.
And my dad has this saying that he said, he used to say this to me all the time. He says, may your reach always exceed your grasp. And what that means is if I could reach the cup on the table, he'd push the cup a little further down the table.
Sure.
So that I'd have to climb up there to get it. And as soon as my hand could get around it, he'd push it a little bit further. And, he thought he was doing me a favor, which he was. It causes a complex. And like Freud talked about this all the time. It's mine. I got my football scores just came in. So it does cause a complex. And Freud would talk about this, right? Because he called them good neuroses. And Freud, back in Freudian psychoanalytics, his thing was, I'm not trying to get rid of your problem. I'm trying to redirect it into a useful thing, right? So if you're neurotic and you worry a lot, let's channel that into something that can be useful in your life. And he called it a good neurosis. In the writer's example, I think that this is an example of it generates a positive effect in your life, but the thing you trade for that amazing skill, the thing you trade for that drive that others don't have, that pushes you further when others are ready to retire and be happy with what they've got, and you're always unhappy, you trade happiness.
Right.
I cannot have any measure of success that would cause me to sit back and say, I've done it.
Right.
I can retire now. In fact, I have several patients that I work with right now. The thing they are in therapy for is they are ready to retire, and their family wants them to, and they can't do it. Even though they are multimillionaires, there's no further up to go. Why keep pushing? Why keep working? Why slay another dragon? And they feel like they're like, Jim, it's insane. Like, I don't know why. And this is part of it, though. It's this legitimately a complex that you are kind of stuck in. So I think the writer's onto something here that A, a lot of us can identify with, and B, is true. It's just self-evidently true. A lot of people get this.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think it's like you said, it's kind of a trade-off where when you develop one thing that's very positive and very helpful, there is a negative. And part of it comes back to belief systems, right?
Yeah.
Because it kind of forms this way that we see the world. I can kind of relate to that in the sense that I always believed, my belief system that I've always had is that if I work hard enough, I can achieve anything.
Right.
Right. Which sounds like a great belief system.
Right.
But nothing is 100% perfect. Right. The trade-off to that then is if I work really hard at something and I don't accomplish it, then I will beat myself up.
Right.
Because then it's if I work hard enough, I can accomplish anything. Well, I didn't accomplish it, therefore I must not have worked hard enough.
Yes.
Why didn't I work harder? Why didn't I put in the extra hours, doing whatever I needed to do? And you can get down into this negative spiral of thinking.
Yes.
I think that it's great that to the listener, I think it's awesome that you're already in therapy.
Good job. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Number one, and then number two, your self-awareness already is very good.
Yes.
I would be interested to hear how your therapist is addressing it.
Yeah.
Me, from my perspective, we talk a lot on the podcast about CBT.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it too.
That's always my go-to because I use it so much in addictions treatment.
Yeah.
So it's very helpful. So I always get into being able to, number one, recognize the thought when it occurs.
Right.
That's the most difficult thing.
Yes.
A lot of folks aren't aware of their automatic thought process.
Right.
It seems like you are aware of it.
Yes.
Like when it happens, you are aware of it. You are able to challenge yourself. I think you're on the right track, and I think I would just encourage you to continue to challenge those thoughts when you recognize them. I don't deserve this kind of luxury of getting massages.
Right.
Okay, well, let's take that thought to court. What evidence do you have to support that?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
Right.
And is this is there evidence to support that, or is this because of this faulty belief system that you've developed?
So I love that you brought up CBT, because to answer her first question, do you have any advice to stop doing this? Yes, and the answer is that I would want you, and this is probably what your therapist is beginning to do, is to do CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, a lot of therapists don't announce that they're doing this, okay? It's just a subtle thing that they're doing with their engagement style with you. But essentially, you are doing in this, and I do this too, right? This is another, if you're playing Jim's Neurotic Bingo at home, you can punch this one. This is a cognitive distortion. It is a false perspective on your reality based in a belief system. And that is an inaccurate belief. And this distortion particularly, while there's many lists of distortions you can point to, the one I would identify here is disqualifying the positive.
Yes.
And so disqualifying the positive is when you shrink your victories and you magnify your failures. And so if you screw something up, that's huge, that's big, we got to address that. Whatever's missing is huge and obvious to you, and you have to get to that. But you don't notice what you've already built. You don't notice what's already good. And when people bring it up to you and they say, hey man, you're doing really great, you go, well, that doesn't count. Well, why? Because there's so much left to do.
Yeah.
Well, what about the B's that you got? Well, those aren't A's. Okay, are you actually upset about it? No, I'm not upset, but I'm unsatisfied. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of need to reach out again. So I also want to bring up the concept of function, because if this is a dysfunctional belief, then we need to address it. Right now it's functional, though. It's getting a lot of things done in your life. I suffer from the same thing, but it's getting things done in my life. And it's just the ability to reach up and turn that switch off if I need to.
Yeah.
So that I can have rest.
Yeah.
Or feel like I do deserve to enjoy the fruits of my labor, that kind of thing. And that's where CBT is really effective, and asking myself those questions, like taking a thought to court and looking for the facts.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I like the analogy that you're using of kind of having that switch.
Yes.
Of, okay, this is awesome. It works great in my professional life.
Yes.
Now I can flip that switch and I can just, in my personal life, just relax a little bit.
Absolutely.
And so maybe that would be a tactic to kind of take too, is using some kind of mental exercise to separate professional life from personal life.
Yeah, and also to begin challenging the belief. Like, who taught you that? Why is that not accurate, right? Let's get facts. So CBT would be the thing I want you to do. To the second question about parenting, I'm so glad she asked this.
Yes,
because I see this all the time. I have young patients that I work with that are kids, and I usually meet with their family as well. And when I catch parents doing this, I will stop them. And I will try to retrain them the way I want them to talk to their kid. Because they'll start saying nice things and they'll notice their kid kind of zoning out. And it's like, why is that kid doing that? Because the kid knows what's about to happen. From your very cadence of praise, the child can tell that you're about to go to but or and. You're going to say, Nick, you've been doing a great job in the first year. Your podcast is a success. You're doing awesome, man. I'm so excited for you. You've really achieved everything, And next season, boy, you could really take it to the next level. I'm so excited to see what you do. Because I have some ideas for you, and I just want you to remember. And it's like, whoa. When we do this to kids, we need to just be present. Let the thought come to a full stop. Great job. I'm so proud of you. That's it. Leave it there. Don't add more.
Maybe I kind of grew up the same way, because as you were saying that, like, none of that bothered me.
It doesn't bother you. Right? But
you think it trains the mind to focus on.
Yes.
So what about this then? So what if, from a parent's perspective, if the parent, instead of taking the driver's seat and talking about what is the next step, they kind of take the passenger seat, as in, like, once the child starts talking about how do I go from a B to an A,
right? Then
the parent jumps in and kind of reinforces that thought.
Yeah. Here's the thing: if you're a parent and you're listening to this, here's my opinion. Victory laps are not part of the race. Take a victory lap. A victory lap is a waste. A victory lap is burning through fuel and cheers, and it's part of what we do. If we do not have closure at the end of success, we do not feel like we're part of this. And so if you get to the end of the Super Bowl and you're Bill Belichick and they interview you and the confetti's falling down and you're hoisting the trophy in the air and they say, Coach, you did it. Congratulations. And he says, we have a lot of improvement to do before next season. You feel like you're being cheated from something. There's an emotion that's being robbed from you. You're not getting completion. And so when your child is successful, as a parent, I want you to rest in that thought for a while. Pause. victory lap. Don't add anything to it. Don't start talking about what comes next. Because as humans, we need completion and finality. And if you rob your child of that, this is what causes the complex. They don't know how to come to a complete stop. They start thinking about the next thing.
So, I'm going to ask you a question of follow-up because I can hear listeners already kind of jumping to, but then by doing that, aren't you kind of getting them to that point where they feel like I have accomplished the goal, now I can just sit and relax and I never have to...
I think there is such thing as a victory lap. I think that there's too many examples in life of winners who can win and take a season off and come back. And I think that here's the risk of this. It's easy to point to the writer. It's easy to point to me and say, well, why wouldn't I want my kid to do what these guys are doing, right? Mm-hmm. Fine. It's a problem, though, because there is such a thing as workaholics.
Sure.
And there is such a thing as people who are never satisfied. And it is toxic. And they are very detrimental to themselves, and they're hard to live with. It's hard whenever you love that kind of a person and you want to take a break with them and they can't vacate. I can't take a vacation. It's hard for my brain to do it. And my father was the same way. And you might admire those people, like we might admire the Steve Jobs of the world or whoever the heck can do these things and never stop. But it's also hard to be that person. And so if our real goal is balance, if our real goal is like, I would like to enjoy the fruits of my labor and I'm kind of maddened that I can't, that's a problem. And so this advice